I started STAND in 2009 after Barack Obama was elected president of the United States, because I really believed that he was going to be a tremendous detriment to this country. I would stand in front of the television and listen to some of the things he said about America and against America, and it would just make me angry. And it just so happens that I've got one of the greatest patriots in the United States of America living in my home, my wife, Theodora Jackson, my wife of 49 years. Stand up, darling, so everybody can see you. And of course, my wife said to me, "And what are you going to do about it?" And I thought, what am I supposed to do about it? But I prayed and thought and prayed and thought, and one day this idea came to me. Stand. We need to take a stand. And God literally dropped that in my heart, staying true to America's national destiny. Because I really believe that America's a providential nation, that God ordained this country, that he put it in the hearts of our founding fathers to birth it, and that it would be a witness to the world of his goodness and his glory. And no, we haven't done it perfectly, because we're not perfect people, but we've done it better than any other nation that's ever existed on the face of the earth. So we started with 2 people, basically, in Chesapeake, Virginia. Their STAND in 2009, that's it. But as a result of a lot of prayer and a lot of support from people in this room, some of whom I will thank in a moment, here is where we are today. I think the only state I could find that didn't have any representation was West Virginia, and I think that that's wrong. I think we do have some representation, or at least some activists in West Virginia. And by the way, those aren't made up numbers of people who just, we found their names somewhere, or they talked to us. Those are people who had to do 2 things. Number 1, they had to give, and number 2, they had to express a desire to help us, to work with us. And so we've got people all over the country who want to take a stand with us. And I'm asking you tonight to help me not just celebrate 10 years, but to prepare for the next 10 years. Because I keep imagining what it would be like right now, for example, if I had several regional field directors who could go out and work with these people and activate them and give them direction and guidance and sort of walk along with them, something I don't have time to do, frankly. I wonder what would it be like if I had someone who could help us market what we're doing constantly through social media and other media to get the word out about what we're doing. Some of my staff has been calling folks in preparation for this, and every now and then, it might be 25 or the 50th person on a list they'll be calling, and Pastor Marlon will come back to me and say, "Bishop, I finally called somebody today and said, 'Stan who?'" But that's because we don't have the ability to follow up. Those are people who've contributed and they forgot they gave. We don't have the ability to follow up with them as consistently as we would like to. What would it be like if we had a development director full-time who could actually help us to cultivate our donors and help us to develop our database so that we would be more effective at reaching people and working with people and keeping people up to date on what we are doing. We've got several programs that we're operating right now. You've heard about 3 of them. You heard about, the campaign to awaken the church. We're working with pastors through Ministers Taking a Stand. We've got the Truth in Black and White, which is an effort to go into black churches and help black pastors to understand. I had a pastor post something that appeared on my wife's Facebook page that I know, and he talked about how great the election results were in Virginia. And I sat down and posted him a little response and said, you know, let's, as Christians, talk about that. And he and I are going to have a conversation about this. So we are reaching out to black pastors, trying to help them to understand that voting for these leftists and their godlessness, their Marxism, their socialism is contrary to everything you say you believe. And Bishop Davis didn't talk about it, but he told me when the first time he and I sat down and met, he told me, he said, you know what, you opened my eyes. He said, because I hadn't even thought about it. thought about how we vote. We just vote a certain way because that's how everybody votes, right? But I hadn't thought about my Christian principles and my Christian values and how those should inform who I cast my vote for. What would it be like if I had somebody to run each of those programs? We got a program called Project Awakening, which is a private sector comprehensive approach to dealing with problems in the inner city. My wife and I have started a program called the Maximum Potential Academy to teach kids who are at risk, like I was as a kid, that America offers hope and opportunity. And even though your circumstances may not be the best, you can rise above it. Because I'm convinced that our problems in the inner cities are not simply economic, they're spiritual, cultural, and moral. And I can say that authentically because I grew up in the ghetto, I grew up in poverty, and I know that it didn't take a government program to save me. It took a loving father to give me counsel and direction and show me what I needed to do with my life. And that's what we got to do for these young kids today. Or if I had somebody to run full-time, stand against communism, because right now I'm doing all of this myself. Pastor Marlin's just joined me as a field director, and he's trying to help me with all of it. But what would it be like if we could build out our staff to deal with all of these issues? And what would it be like if we could look at our organization 10 years from now and really see a transformed racial climate in our country? Because I've asked God for two things before I leave this earth, and I'm not going anytime soon, so don't think I'm rushing. But two things. One is I want my country to come back to its Judeo-Christian values and principles, and I want to cast socialism and Marxism on the dung heap of human history so that there'll still be dummies who believe it, but that most Americans would say, oh, you still believe that stupid stuff? Oh, we got rid of that a long time ago. I want us to be unified again. You know, they criticize us. They say, well, you know, you want to go back to the days of slavery. You want to go back to when women couldn't vote. And of course, that's a lie. But we do want to go back to a time when we understood that it's about neighbor helping neighbor, not the government trying to do everything for everybody. We want to go back to a time when we looked at each other as human beings, not based on racial classification or gender classification. And we want to go back to a time when we believed in personal responsibility and individual liberty. I don't have a right to demand that you take care of me and my responsibility and my family. That's my job. I'll do that. My daddy taught me that. We want to go back to a time when we were unified around a certain set of values. I met a man in Southwest Virginia, grew up in a rural community as a farmer. I grew up in the urban city of Chester, Pennsylvania, and we were talking about our dads, and after a while we started laughing and said, you know what, our fathers knew each other, didn't they? Because they shared the same set of values and beliefs. My father always taught me something: nobody owes you anything. You go out there and work for what you want. You make it your own way. People would come by and knock on the door and say, we got cheese, we've got this, that, and the other that we'll give my father. I don't want that. I work for a living. Thank you very much. Take that to somebody who wants it. He was a proud black man. He taught me to be a proud American, a proud black man. I know I'm accused of being a white supremacist these days, believe it or not. I mean, how does that work? Because I absolutely, categorically reject the idea that we should be a society that is pointing at a group of people on the basis of their race and saying they're the problem. Oh, it's white people. It's the white man. That's wicked. That's evil. That's demonic. You are doing the same thing that was done 150 years ago, only reversing it. And the left, they're too stupid to understand that all they're doing is dragging us right back to what we thought we'd been rescued from. Amen. Not on our watch. Not on our watch. I know I've said, I never thought I'd see the day would come. I have to defend white people, but here we are. Because it's ridiculous. It's not the future our country wants. So I know everybody can't do everything, but we have people, I'm telling you folks, it brings tears to my eyes. We have people who give us $5 a month. $5 a month, and I treasure it too. There's a woman named Joanne Spires. I'll never forget it. For about 2 years, she's been sending in her $5 a month. Bishop, I'm with you. Here's my $5 a month. So as somebody said earlier, I don't know whether it was Star or Jenny, but everybody can do something. And by the way, I'll end with this. There are a lot of conservative organizations. Many of them are represented here, and all of them are great and are run by people that I really admire. I mean, really admire and admire what they do. But I have to tell you, there is only one conservative organization that I know of that has as part of its mission, now not just as a byproduct of what it does, but part of its mission, to bring us together across racial and cultural lines, unify us around our Judeo-Christian values and principles so that we can ultimately become one nation under God, because only then will we have liberty and justice for all. So help us to carry out that mission. Help us to carry it out. Forgive me, but you all can see I can get a little worked up about this stuff. I said I've asked God for two things. That's one, Judeo-Christian values in our country. And here's the second, to end the racial divide, to end it, to put a stop to it. And by the way, just a little snippet. Here's what I tell people when they say, how can you love America? America had slavery. And I tell them, you know, I'm tired of people acting like the world was such a great place and along came America and messed it all up. Folks, the whole world lived in subjugation. Slavery was universal. The first people to engage in the African slave trade were the Portuguese. They learned it from the North African Arab Muslims who had been trading in African slavery for hundreds of years. And by the way, when the Portuguese started the African slave trade, they were already trading in Japanese and Chinese and Slavs and other Europeans. They were already trading in slavery. They just discovered the African slave trade, and the African Muslims convinced them that this was even more lucrative. And so they got involved in that too. They stopped the Chinese and Japanese slave trade because China and Japan threatened to go to war with them if they didn't stop enslaving their people. Before the African slave trade even started, the Barbary pirates enslaved 1.2 million Europeans and put them in slavery in Africa and the Middle East. Your children won't learn that in school because what they want to teach them is a racial narrative. That it's all an American thing, and it's all a white people's thing, it's all a European thing. No, it's a sin thing. It's a sin thing. It's not the skin, it's the sin. And it's not about race, it's about righteousness. And I'm convinced of this. If God were to wave his hand over the whole earth right now and made us all the same complexion and gave us all the same texture hair and left one difference, some of us with black eyes, some with blue, some with green, some with hazel eyes, some with brown eyes, it wouldn't be long. The brown-eyed folks would be over in their corner, say, you know, when I walked in here, those green-eyed people didn't look at me right. Did you have that same experience? Yes, I certainly did. You know what? We need to start the green-eyed civil rights movement and put a stop to this, because it's what we do as human beings. It would be stupid of me to look at you as the creation of Almighty God and think some way about you because of the complexion of your skin. I mean, folks, that's, when you think about it, it's just downright stupid and ungodly. God loves you. He made you. You're special. You're unique. The color of your skin doesn't matter. You know, I used to hear that black is beautiful, and I understand the sentiment out of which that came. But you know what? I've learned everybody's beautiful. God made us all. He loves us all.